Welcome into Fall Stamp Camp 2009 here at 2peasinabucket.com. This week we're focusing on stamping with markers. The first card I'm going to share with you today is the pumpkin card, and to do that I have cut my cardstock, and here I'm just going to show you, or I've cut my cardstock down to my card size, which is a 4¼ inch square. And here are the markers I'm using. These are the stamp markers from American Crafts, and I'm showing there's a brush tip, which is the tip I like to use, and then a medium point tip for maybe those areas that need smaller detailing. So I'm coloring in these swirlies on this Hero Arts pumpkin, and I'm not really coloring in the rest of the pumpkin. I want those little swirls to be green, so I'm using a Stamp-A-Majig to get my placement. So I stamped it once there on my plastic sheet that comes with the Stamp-A-Majig, and then I will ink it up again with my marker. I'm just using that brush tip, and I'm gonna just I'm not doing it real neat or anything, because if some of the rest of the pumpkin stamps, it'll be covered up here in a little bit. But there you can see that that little swirl is on the background of my card. I'm going to do the same thing with this little shorter and rounder pumpkin, and I'm just going to color that in. I'm going to get the placement on my Stamp-A-Majig sheet and position it there on my card, and then I will stamp it so that that little swirl part will be green. And I'm doing this first because I am going to be embossing the background of the card with a Quick Cuts polka dot embossing folder, and it's hard to stamp over an embossed image, so I wanted to stamp this part first. So now I've got that all stamped. I've run it through my Epic 6 with the embossing folder, and you can see that great texture that wouldn't have stamped nice otherwise. So now I have the background of my card all ready to go. And this one shorter pumpkin did have a little bit of that swirl on the inside of the pumpkin design, so I'm going to go ahead and use my stamp markers to color in the design. And I'm just using the black here because I'm going to actually be using the markers more for coloring in my stamped images on this card. So I'm just filling in the design. And then I'm stamping both this shorter pumpkin and the taller one on some scrap cream cardstock. Okay, to color these in, here's an example of one where I colored it, and you can see where the colors overlap and how it just doesn't look very nice. So here is how you color it so that you get a nice smooth stroke. You take the brush tip and you kind of try to follow the whole contour of the image. And you'll see as I fill it in that it will give a much nicer design if you do it more like this. You won't be able to see those ridges where the color overlaps as you're coloring. So here are the two side by side, so you can see that the one on the left looks much nicer and more realistic. And then I'll color in the stem with the chestnut marker. And here I'm just adhering those pumpkins right over and lining them up with the swirl, as you can see. And I'm going to just use some black ink and stamp the greeting on some patterned paper that I've adhered to the bottom of that card. And I add a punched border. And then I decided I wanted just a little bit of embellishment, so I'm wrapping a little bit of string around the pumpkin stems and tying it in a little bow. And then I always like to secure mine with some liquid glue, because cards get handled a lot. Those little bows can come out, so I always secure mine with some glue. Okay, here is another card, and this is the Halloween one. And I just laid out my stamps to kind of get the placement that I wanted for my card. And then I'm going to go ahead, and this card is completely done with markers except for that little kitty cat there. I'm just going to use my markers to color in all the images. And one thing I would suggest when coloring in the clear stamps is that you stamp them first with either the markers or ink. There's kind of a finish on them when you first get them, and it kind of makes the ink from the markers pool, much like it does with ink pads. And it won't give you a very nice image, stamped image. So I like to stamp it once, clean it off, and then color in my image if they're brand new. So I'm just using several different colors here on this cute little pirate owl. I'm using the chestnut brown, the apricot orange, the black, and then the red. So just coloring in all the little pieces to the little owl. And what's nice about this is when you stamp with the markers like this, you can get dimension without having to cut anything out or anything like that. It's a really simple and easy way to add a lot of color with one stamp, with one time stamping it. I've also found that if I work quick enough, I don't have to huff on the stamp or breathe on it to re-moisten the ink. You can if you want. I didn't even breathe on it to stamp it this time, but if I would breathe on it again and stamp it, it would still stamp another image just a little bit fainter than this one. So there you can see the cute little owl all stamped. And even though this ghost does not have a lot to him, I wanted to make sure his feet were a different color, so I colored those in with the apricot orange, and then I colored the rest of him in with the black before stamping him on my card. And it just adds a nice little touch. It gives him a little bit more interest. And then the little kitty cat really didn't have a need to be colored different colors, so I did just stamp him with some Black Memories ink, but I will color in his little nose here in a little bit with a pink marker just to give him a little bit more color. And with the owl, I did the same thing as the pirate, and I colored her all in, or the little witch owl, I should say. And then I'm going to just go back over my design, and I wanted to fill in the little pirate's feet with the apricot orange color. And I'm also going to fill in the witch's nose with the orange. And then there I'm going to take that, it's a taffy pink American Crafts marker, and color in the little kitty's nose, and that just adds a nice fun touch. I also used the markers to color in the greeting so that I could do the Halloween in orange and the wishes in black. For the final card, I must have missed taping this part, so I apologize, but I just colored in this Technique Tuesday stamp with the rouge red and the chestnut brown and stamped it on my background, which the background is the raindrops stamp from Hero Arts, and I just stamped that in green, then stamped my greeting right over it. And here are the Hero Arts apples, and this would be a fun card to maybe give a teacher or something, kind of still back in that back to school mode, or just need to send a note to your teacher or anybody really. I really like these apples. And I'm just adding a little shading with the mustard yellow, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the rouge red right over that, and adding a little bit of leaf for green for the little leaf on the apples, and then chestnut brown for the stem. So you can add a lot of color to these stamps, a lot of different shading. So I'm going to do all that, and I'm using my Stamp-A-Majig again just so I can get the placement correct, because I'm stamping quite a few of these right on top of each other. And there you can see what it looks like. And you can see that little bit of yellow shading kind of just adds a little bit of dimension and interest to the stamped apples. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for 2 more apples on my card. And I decided to just go with that plain one 2 more times. And I added a punched border and little card or a pattern paper strip and string to finish off this card. So there's what that one looks like all finished. All of these are really easy to stamp. For more information, please visit 2peasinabucket.com.